Welcome to the Beyond the Call Sheet podcast series, where we interview creatives and hear their journey working in the creative arts.
Hi, I'm Wendy Rowe and I'm a makeup artist.
Could you tell me about your early childhood years?
Well, I grew up in northeast London on kind of Essex. It was quite suburban. My mum and dad are from the East End and they made good, so moved to suburbia. My dad done a degree when we were kids because there was no internet. So he had to get up very early to watch the TV, and I used to get up early with him, a little bit of discipline, I suppose. My mum was the creative one. My dad was the academic mum. My mum, she baked really well. She sewed, made all of our clothes. And she done people's hair. She was a really good crafter, She could do anything. And so obviously I would do stuff with her. But, I used to come home and people were in hood dryers and she'd cut people's hair. But she was never trained. So I kind of learned a lot of these things from my mum, this crafting side. And obviously I got to an age where I didn't want my mum to make my clothes. Because they weren't cool, and I was starting watching TV, and my favourite film was Grease, and it's really hilarious now. I mean, I had to try not to swear then. That is a makeover film, but it had all the singing and dancing and everything, and I wanted it to be cool, so I wanted to be cool. So I wanted like satin trousers and a sequin boob tube. Well, my mum would not get me that, but I managed to convince my nan, because she was like, cool, my nan, and she got it for me, and then I'd go to a Saturday morning disco, and that's all I cared about growing up, kind of dancing, doing sport, and dressing up, I suppose, telling a story.
Who inspired you, and where did you find your inspiration when you were younger?
Well, I like music and I like movement, dance, and I loved imagery. So that was really important to me. When I was growing up, Elvis Presley died. So they put loads of Elvis Presley movies on TV. I didn't know who he was before. But obviously there was a lot of singing and dancing, Technicolor. And then obviously there was Grease. We're back to Grease again. And, Sandy with the makeover. Then she became like cool, tight trousers, smoking fags, and rebellious. And that kind of, I could relate to that because I was dyslexic, so I was quite rebellious. So, I mean, other than that, there was Top of the Pops. So the next person that kind of stuck with me was Blondie, Debbie Harry, on Top of the Pops in a dustbin bag with stripy tights. And I thought, oh, she's cool. And listen, it was a melting pot of like, great music and imagery. They were all storytellers. There was, Human League. There was Prince, Michael Jackson, Madonna, Hayes O'Connor, Susie Sue. There was Sade. There was like melting pot. Everyone had a story to tell, and everyone had like an image to shine. So, and also on the street, it was like a culture of like, if you like the music, you wore the clothes. So, you could be, listen, I missed punk. I'm desperado to be a punk. But that was all about like kind of dishevelled clothes and like making stuff out of things. Well, I could kind of do that because my mum had showed me that. So that kind of fitted in with me, but I was too young for that. The next form of culture that came was like mods, rockers. My sister was a mod. They had cool clothes. There was casual, which I kind of veered towards, and hip hop. But it was kind of a London hip hop. And ska, which was a kind of branch off from skinheads and mods. So there was all these things going on, all these looks and attitudes and stuff. And that really kind of shaped kind of my vision of different feelings and emotions. Because the thing is, makeup is emotional. And I suppose that's where it kind of pulls it all together.
What was it like growing up being dyslexic?
I was heavily dyslexic, and no one realised that at school. So I went through my whole education time not knowing that, and just thinking that I just didn't understand stuff. And in the end, when people would explain, I could feel their frustration, and that used to really upset me. And in the end, I would just say, "Yeah, I got it," and then I just find ways to understand it or do it completely differently. But I was much more image-led, image-driven. And so because I saw things differently, it was really easy for me to find solutions to things that people didn't see but were very clear to me. And that's like really helped me in my chose profession. It's a superpower. I mean, I would have given anything to not be dyslexic, because I felt like I couldn't do certain things, so I'd hide them and excel on other things, and maybe someone doesn't notice. But it was tough, but it is a superpower. But I do think being academic's amazing. But people probably think the way I see things is amazing. But you always want what you haven't got.
How was your experience at the London College of Printing?
When I left school, I went to the London College of Printing, art and design, and I done studio graphics, only because there wasn't an option to do makeup, and it wasn't really something that I even thought about. But I wanted to do something to do with art because I was good at it. So basically, that's about lettering, typographics, page layout, stuff like that. Subsequently, I went on to get a job. I'd done that for 2 years. I was the kind of, I don't know how I managed to do this. I was kind of the head of the studio. I don't know how. And at a very young age. And we would just do all the things for Body Shop and stuff like that. The only thing I couldn't do was like copy proofreading. And we printed this leaflet, and I was supposed to copy proofread the type. And of course, I don't really read a lot. And it said, "We don't care about our customers." And they spent they printed loads of them. Obviously, that was a big thing. But whoever I worked for at the time was super nice and understood that I was dyslexic, which was like a first, I'll be honest. And then after that, I realised I was a bit bored of this. It's not really what I want to do. It's not very exciting. I'm at a drawing board, even though the people were fun and they were creative, but it wasn't enough for me because I need to move around a lot more.
What was your route into makeup? Did you go to makeup college?
I left doing graphics because it wasn't stimulating enough for me. So I kind of travelled for a little bit, and then I ended up going to makeup college because of a friend of mine who was a hairdresser, and he was a modern romantic, obviously, because everyone's got a look. And he said to me, "Why don't you go and do this course? It's 12 weeks." And at that time, you had to do hair and makeup. And he was learning how to do makeup. And I was like, okay, yeah, it kind of fits in. Supermodels were coming up. I liked all that. Yeah, I think I'll do that. Yeah, why not? And he was like, "We can go on trips together." And I was like, "Oh, God, that sounds amazing. What a laugh." And so I went to makeup college, and the teacher said to me, you need to cover these spots on some of the models, because obviously they weren't supermodels. And I was like, well, me being arrogant and a know-all, I was like, well, I'm just going to do models and fashion shows, so I don't need to have to cover up spots. I mean, I didn't know what I was talking about, but it's quite funny to look back, because obviously models do have spots, and you do need to know to cover them up. So there you go.
What did you do after your makeup course?
When I finished my course, I went to assist my friend who was a hairdresser, and in Paris. I didn't speak French, and I've never been in a studio. And, I made loads of mistakes, like walking across the backdrop, and making footprints and stuff. I didn't really do much makeup, but I just didn't know any of the etiquette about being in a photographic studio. I didn't have a clue. And I didn't really understand anything because everyone was speaking French. But listen, I'm dyslexic, so I find ways around things. Look at people's body language, see what's going on. And so, you know, like if I went on a trip with him. I mean, it was only like local trips. I mean, it wasn't like to the Maldives or anything. The kind, lovely models would let me do their makeup to go down to dinner. Of course, you know, I'm desperado to do something, so I'd do like a glitter eyeliner, like things that they really didn't need to wear. But they were like really gracious, and they just let me do it and said it was really good, you know. And that was Paris.
What did you do after Paris? Did you go back to London?
Came back to London after 3 months in Paris, which was hard but funny, and I learnt a lot actually. And someone said to me, go to model agencies and ask them for testing photographers. Now, testing photographers are photographers that are testing models, and you need hair and makeup and styling because you needed to get pictures together for yourself to put in a portfolio for you to take to an agent to get some work. And if you wanted to get any work, you needed to have a portfolio. So I suppose now it would be like an Instagram page, right? And basically you'd phone them up and you'd all kind of get together. I don't really know how that happened, because there wasn't any like mobile phones, I don't think, at that point. So you're probably phoning people at home and hoping that they were in. And sometimes they weren't, so you'd have to keep on phoning. So you needed to be persistent. And then you'd all get on the shoot, you'd all meet up, I don't know, like let's say in Battersea Park or somewhere. And then you'd like do the hair and makeup outside. I mean, it's quite hard. And like I would do like crazy makeup because I wanted to do everything, you know, to show how brilliant I was and what I'd learned. And, you know, I've been to Paris, hey. And the hairdresser would do massive hair, like with brooches in it and extensions and stuff. And the stylist would do like crazy stuff. And then we'd take the picture and it would be like, oh God, it's amazing. Obviously, after a while, I realised that wasn't what people were looking for because it looked a bit theatrical and it's not going to get me any work. And so I was going to go and work in the theatre, which I didn't want to. I wanted to do supermodels. I wanted to do like the George Michael video. So that's not going to get me any work. So what happened was I started to find people that were of like-minded ilks. And then we started working together, and then I got better pictures, and then I started to get small little jobs.
How did you go from testing to paid work?
How I got from testing to paid work was along the way of testing, you meet people. And, you know, and then suddenly someone would say, oh, I've got a job. It wouldn't be a little job. It would be like a major job then. And now it's a little job. Then you'd start to like find friendships and people would ask you to do things with them. And one of the friendships I made was with a stylist, and her boyfriend was a video director. And so I started to do pop videos because that was the thing then. But obviously I was doing hair and makeup. I mean, I couldn't really do hair. I was just winging it, do you know what I mean? But never say you can't do it, right? Because you just got to get on with it. You figure it out. I mean, there were some funny moments, but that's for another time. Anyway, from that, I went on to do like, I done loads of stuff with V17, and of course there was loads of choreography, so I loved all that. And then, you know, I done Wannabe, the first Wannabe video with the Spice Girls. I done Venus as a Boy with Bjork because I met a great video director called Sophie Muller, and she was doing all Shakespeare Sisters things. And yeah, so I started to do quite a lot of music, but it wasn't my passion. I wanted to do fashion, you know. So I met someone along the way in this music kind of scenario, and it was a hairdresser called Ayala Guda, and he said to me, you need to do all the shows, you need to assist on the shows. Now, I had assisted in London, but all the big houses were abroad. So if you wanted to work for like Prada, Dior, Chanel, Miu Miu. They were all like in other countries. So he was like, you need to go and assist someone. And he was like, why don't you come? I will get you in with my friend. She's not going to pay you, but that's the only way you're going to get on people's teams. Because when people were doing it like in Paris, Milan and New York, they were like big people and they didn't take people on their teams just willy-nilly. You know, you had to kind of be recommended. So the first time I went and assisted her, and I just done powder, I was just like eager, I want to be there, I'll do anything, you know. And then eventually I got on people's teams, and then I was in Milan. I was going to say Paris, but Milan. And I was doing the Prada show. I think it's like the second time that I'd been there. But bear in mind, I was paying for myself because I made money from the music videos. So I get to Milan, I'm doing the Prada show. I had met Carolyn Murphy, who was the Prada girl, who was like the girl of the advertising campaign. And she... I met her in a bar the night before with my friend, the hairdresser, who was older, and he knew everybody. And so she, you know, just liked me and thought I was in the in crowd. And she came straight over to me at the Prada show and said, can you do my makeup? And I was like, okay. But I'd done it how I kind of done it, what I learnt from makeup college, which was not a fashion makeup. It was a more of an old-fashioned makeup. And then I'd finished her and I thought, oh, God, you know, I hope I'd done good. And it was Dick Page I was assisting. And he said, who done this girl? Who done Caroline? And I was a bit like, me? And he was like, it's really not good. And I was like, oh, my God, I was mortified. And he said, it's really heavy and let me show you. And he was a real champion of mine. And he showed me how to do less makeup and told me that, Wendy, you don't need to, just because it says it on the bottle, you don't need to use it like that. You can use it any way you want. And for me, that resonated because I always done stuff differently. So I was like, oh, my God, it just opened a whole new world for me.
How long did it take to gain the confidence to do your own thing?
Felt confident enough to stop assisting, like I could go and do the fashion thing a bit more on my own. It took me probably about 2 years. It was, well, the first thing was, obviously I was assisting Dick and he spoke to his agent and his agent took me on and I was like, oh my God, I made it. I've got an agent. It was slow. It took ages. My first thing ever was the Telegraph magazine, which I've still got. And, you know, but I was doing fashion and that's what I wanted to do. There was no money in it at all, but I didn't care because this was what I wanted to do. And I was going with people that were vibing the same as me. And, and then I went on to do magazines that were more glossy, like ID and The Face. And that's when all the whole kind of music and streetwear kind of came in, because I can reference back to the kind of library of kind of looks in my head. So that's where that worked. It was kind of like a street culture moment. And I was good at that because, you know, I'm English and I grew up in that time.
How different was your work once you had an agent?
Well, having an agent makes your work evolve because, well, number one, they believe in you and they try and, then they really helped you steer your career. The path then was you started in London and you went to Paris, you kind of learned your craft. I'd learnt my speed on the shows and then you go to New York and then you become a major success. And that's where all the top people are. And you don't make any mistakes by then. So my agent said to me, Karen, who was a massive believer in me, even when I didn't believe in myself, said to me, Wendy, you need to go to Paris. And I was like, what? I don't want to, I've been to Paris once. I mean, it was like, and I don't speak French. And she was like, well, if you stay here, your career's not going to change. And I thought, well, I can't have that because I've got to be successful to prove my mum and dad wrong, because they just thought, oh, she's another little thing that she's going to do, another, because I'm not working in a bank or something like that. Here she goes, dreaming on about something. So I was a bit like, I'm determined I'm going to be successful no matter how hard it is. And it was hard. And I moved to Paris. And they wanted makeup. In London, it was just grunge. But I kind of wanted to do makeup, so I'd do makeup that looked like it wasn't there, which stood me in good stead later on. Everything was for a reason, I know now. Didn't know that at the time. Paris was good because I kind of learnt my craft. They wanted makeup. They worked very late and started very late. I had to navigate myself around the city because wasn't speaking much French. I had to kind of understand people's body language and kind of suss out situations, and that was really a hard time for me, Paris. But I learned about food there, and I learned about wine. I drank quite a lot of wine to get through that. And I suppose I gelled with the aesthetic of a French woman. It was very similar to what I liked, a kind of dishevelled, kind of no makeup, but kind of cool and a bit sexy. So I could really resonate with that. Subsequently, I'd done a lot of Vogue covers later on. And I worked with a lot of French people. And a lot of the people that I met then when I was in Paris, I still work with. So there's history there. Then I needed to go to New York because that was the next step. And obviously I didn't know anyone there either. But a friend of mine that I met in Paris put me in touch with her brother that lived in New York. So it's all kind of all these things became stepping stones. And I was thinking about this and I thought, no one really helped me. But now I look back, I had a lot of supporters and a lot of help. And when I got to New York, that was tough. I spoke the language, I thought it was going to be easy, It was tough. But the one thing about the States is they give you a chance. Do you know what I mean? Where London's quite cliquey, French is quite cliquey in a different way. But in New York, they give you a shot and you better be able to do it. And if you can, you're off and running.
Could you tell me about the years working with Burberry?
I was working in New York for probably about a year, and a friend of mine who I'd met, because it's all about connections, who was working for Dutch magazine in Paris, who was actually English, said to me, do you want to come and do this show? I'm starting this show called Burberry. And I knew Burberry from school, being a casual and like wearing like trench coats and stuff. And I was like, yeah. Because I wanted to do shows. I'd already done some shows in Milan and stuff like that. I'd done shows, but this was a big show. So I went back to London, just a flying visit, and done the show. And subsequently, I ended up working with them for 16 years. Because what happens when you start to get a good fit and a brand starts to trust you, they will invest in lots of things with you because you understand their brand. What happened was they decided to do a makeup line and they asked me to be artistic director, consultant, one of the two. I always get it wrong. And which was like the thing that I'd really wanted. I'd done the shows and advertising for like so many years, probably about 8 years by that time. And Christopher Bailey was the designer, and he would want things that did not exist. So I would kind of mix makeup together and get things together. And it was a lot of barely there makeup, nude makeup. Listen, I done so many looks on different nudes, textures, formulations, greys, mauves, blushes, oh my God, browns, everything. I became the master of nudes because the journalists would be like, oh, it's another natural makeup. And I go, yeah, but it's different this time. So what happened was I developed the makeup range with them. I came up with products, what I needed for the show, what I knew would be simple to use, because I had a team of people that worked with me and I would have to tell them what I wanted to do. So when I showed Christopher options for looks, he would say, I like this one, but a little bit like this, or this one a little bit like that. So, and then I would go away, break it down, make it super easy for my 30 assistants or 40 assistants to recreate. So then that was easy for me to break down, to make product that was easy for the everyday person to use to create a look. So it was a gift that I was allowed to do that. He allowed me to create products and trusted me. Things that wasn't on the market. We won awards, and while that whole time I was at Burberry, we were firing on all cylinders. It was, digital coming. We were like, everything was coming into line. We done shows around the world, in LA, in Beijing, in Tokyo. I mean, it was a fun time, and everyone was quite young, and we worked really hard, and we all loved it, and it was magnificent. It was a magnificent time.
What have you learnt over the years working as a makeup artist?
Living in New York, I'm working with Burberry, I'm managing big teams. What I've learned from this is you need to be able to communicate with people. And, what happened, like an example, when the dust cloud hit, we didn't work because everyone was flying in from different places. So there's lots of people that didn't speak English wasn't their first language, and you need to try and understand people. You might be working with art directors that their first language isn't English, or photographers or models or stylists. You need to kind of like try and understand people and work as a team. Try and help each other out. If someone's having a tough time, maybe understanding or doing something, even lifting something, you help if you can. I think the teamwork thing and the camaraderie is really important. People want to be around people that are helpful. I kind of learned that at an early age because I was very sporty. And so the team was all it was about for me. And I suppose what happens in working in teams is you start to understand each other much quicker, and that's what used to happen. People used to work in teams, hair and makeup, styling, photographer, all the time, because then they didn't have to communicate so much. They just go, oh, that look like so and so, and you go, oh, I've got that, yeah, and you just do it, and it becomes like a real kind of meditation process when you're in your zone and you know what you're doing and everybody's like-minded, they're all doing their thing. It becomes really easy and quite magical. And it's, and then you create this picture that stands the test of time. You don't know necessarily, unless you're doing something for an era, what era it would be, or it would be, it was just a great picture, great image. And that's what I learned. I learned about proportions, and I learned how to go, well, if they're going to do loads with the hair, maybe I'll just pull back on the makeup. It's not always about me. Just make the picture look good. Let's make the image look good. Listen to the client. Who's their woman? Okay, might not be my woman, but I need to give them their woman my way. So you just try and, they bought you for a reason. But you don't go, well, it's my way or no way, because you won't get any work. But it's all about being adaptable. You really have to learn how to do that, because people do not get on if they're very like hard-headed. It's not an industry for that.
How important have other people been in shaping your career?
Throughout my career, I've met quite a few people that have shaped it for me. I would say AO for believing in me and pushing me to places where I was uncomfortable. Also my agent Karen. Dick Page was telling me that you don't have to live by the rules, which I wasn't doing anyway, but for some reason I did. But he opened that whole makeup place for me to be able to do what I wanted. Melanie Ward, who I met first of all when I was assistant, and she was the stylist for Helmut Lang. She was the one that done all the deconstructed clothes. She worked with Corinne Day. She changed the fashion world. She done grunge, but I don't know, she was just an amazing person. We became friends because I lived in New York. She really championed me and believed in me and really helped me in my career to move up the ladder and introduced me to people that I went on to do things with. She was a super kind, amazing person. She passed away last year, and if you know anything about fashion, you will know Melanie Ward. And I suppose that brings me on to know who's done what photographer done what stylist done what model. You need to know all of this. It's super important for you to have a background about styles and influences. That's really important. You need to know your fashion background. Devil Wears Prada would want you to know that.
What opportunities have you gained from being a makeup artist?
Working as a makeup artist, other opportunities are like doing product development. You're not a chemist. Well, you might have a chemist background, but I didn't. And that was more about what I needed to work with. So I'd create products that were easy to work with, things that didn't exist, textures or stuff that I needed to last for a certain period, or there's always something, because the world is changing and people want different things. So I was able to do that. And then in interviews I was asked about my lifestyle. Obviously I like talking about myself, I'm here. I cook and I work out and I do other things that are not always good. But someone asked me, well, quite a few people asked me to write a book on makeup. And I said, well, that's kind of old-fashioned. The best makeup books on makeup were by Kevin Alquan. But we're in a different time now. So I feel like it could be different. And I wanted to talk about beautiful skin, because I was known as the master of nudes. So good makeup starts with good skin. And you need to eat right, you need to move. Listen, these are all the things I was doing anyway. And, and know how to deal with disasters quickly. Because I had to do that on set a lot. I became like a paramedic therapist. But you just figure it out, how things work. And so there's a lot of them things in the book. So I suppose you know what, this tree has branches now. So yeah, there's lots of other things. I suppose you could go into podcasting and stuff like that. I didn't really do that. It's here I am doing a podcast. What am I talking about?
Do you ever get nervous before a shoot or a big project?
Now I work with a lot of A-list celebrities, and do I get nervous? Well, you know what? When I first moved to New York, I got nervous about most jobs. I used to really like the night before checking. I used to think, oh God, what are they going to ask me to do? And I suppose celebrity came in then because I started working with like Sienna Miller and stuff, and Nicole Kidman, and then suddenly, I don't know what happened, but they just stopped being so panicky, which was great actually. But I think that came from the fact that I believed in me now. I didn't think I was a fraud anymore, or I don't know if I can do this. I knew I was good. I knew I got it. So that just suddenly changed. And I think working with celebrities, coming back to celebrities, I mean, they're all people at the end of the day. And when you know you're good at what you do, the nerves just go. But what you do have to do is wear a lot of hats, and this is just in general in the business. You wear a lot of hats and you have to take one off and put another one on, because things change rapidly in this business. When you're on set or you're working with someone to go on the red carpet, dynamics change rapidly. Someone could be really happy and then something like drama happens, and you know, it could be all light and then it's not, and then it is, and then it's like something else is happening. So you need to read the room and as well as do your job and be entertaining, and people want to be around you and do a good job and not get in the way and say the right thing. It's a bit like improv, you know, you kind of have to roll with it.
What advice would you give to any younger or aspiring makeup artists?
If you're a young makeup artist and you want to get into the industry, I would say to you, get out there, meet people. It's about connection. You need to see things, feel things. It's emotional makeup. So start connecting. Also, you could contact the British Beauty Council or just look on their website. I know they're, you know, really trying hard to make it easy for people to get into the industry, a nice, like, easier route than when I started, because there was no guidance. But check it out, and I think that would help a lot. But the main thing is just get out there, start doing it, connect with people, feel it, and have a great time.
Thanks for watching or listening to Beyond the Call Sheet. I hope you found it interesting, and if you'd like to be notified of the next episode, then don't forget to subscribe or like. Thank you.